lunch and then go around and take photos and all that fun stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, here we are on the Birdsville Track finally, that iconic outback destination for Australia. Apart from the natural beauty, there is just so much wildlife out here, as this flock of emus can show you. And also everywhere you drive out here there are cattle grazing near the road as it's all unfenced. And that adds to the charm of the trip itself. The track itself is actually in really good condition, as you can see from this shot here. We were lucky enough to follow the gradient for a fair bit of the track up towards Cooper Creek, which made it very easy to drive along. For those of you that have followed any sort of outback Australian history, this is the track into Cooper Creek itself, made famous from many outback stories, and also the mailman of the Birdsville Track, Tom Cruise as well. There is a number of locals that live in the creek bed itself, and some very interested locals when having a look on when we were setting up our camp. Very hard to see here, but this is a dingo about 10 yards away from the camp at night time, just scavenging around.
Got it? Yep.
We saw these camels tied up just north of Cooper's Creek before we got to Mungarani Station. Obviously they were being tethered for the Maori Camel Cup, which was the following week, I guess it was. Mungarani is, like a lot of outback stations, it's a bit of an oasis in the middle of nowhere. And it's iconic in itself in terms of the inside of the pub is full of all paraphernalia from a lot of travellers that have come through. It has great facilities there. It's got a great shower and toilet. And there is a campground there, although we preferred to stay at Cooper's Creek. There is a billabong there, but it does smell of sulphur, as you'll hear one of our party mention.
Stinks of sulphur, that's for sure.
The other thing it has there is a bit of a dip pool, which again smells a bit of sulphur, but it's quite cool and relaxing. There's fuel there as well, and probably the best thing to say about it, given the price of it, was the fact that we were really happy that it was there. You know, you accept it as it is.
Just stop if you don't mind.
The Pajero itself, for a 10-year-old car, just performed like a breeze on these roads, and our choice of the Bridgestone Dueler tyres proved to be a masterstroke, because not only were they a lot quieter than a lot of other all-terrain tyres on the tar, but two of the things that you really worry about when you're doing this outback trip is chopping the tyres out on the stone roads and also punctures. And what we found with the Duelers is neither happened, and it was a masterstroke on our behalf. If you are heading towards Birdsville, you really do need to try and take the inside track if you can. It had only just opened up after about 4 years being closed, but the drive makes it worthwhile. Initially you hit these gibber plains that are just broad expanses of nothing but rock, where basically nothing could survive apart from the odd dingo that didn't really seem too bothered by us at all. More gibber plains, more expanse of nothing, some sandy corrugated tracks with some salt bush vegetation. The vegetation then changes to a clay pan, which allows the floodwaters to spread out. No matter where you're driving in the outback, you always need to look out for these large road trains, although they're very polite. The surprising thing, given the number of cattle that were there, is that the condition, and they're all in really good condition. These young heifers are just, deciding to wander across in front of the car without too much issue. And finally you find yourself following the Diamantina River in the final approach to Birdsville. If you sort of take the time to come back out and head down into the river bed, it's a beautiful spot for a picnic or just to camp even overnight. But the final approach into Birdsville, as soon as you hit just past the cattle yards there, it turns to tar, and there you are.
Okay.
The other thing we found, because there was two of us travelling, our GME radios just made it so easy to keep in communication with each other. Birdsville Caravan Park, great facilities, very popular, and if you can get a nice spot down by the lagoon, it's quite peaceful. The Birdsville Bakery had the most amazing display of Sturt desert peas just outside, and everyone's got to take their photo outside the Birdsville pub. It's pretty much the reason why you go there. The pub itself, full of character inside. They take all the paraphernalia down for the Birdsville races, but it's an awesome area outside there, and the meals, this huge steak and chips meal was just fantastic. We ate there both nights we were at Birdsville. And then we headed out to the Simpson Desert National Park for Big Red. And as with all travelling on the sand, you got to let your tyres down, right down to about 10 psi actually. The Bridgestone Duelers just didn't let us down at all while we were playing around in the sand. One thing we did notice was just how windy it was the day there. It was unbelievable. It was blowing a gale. And the good old Pajero, tyres let down, didn't let us down. It climbed Big Red easily. Mind you, it has done a lot of work up at Stockton, but this easily eclipses anything we've climbed at Stockton. The views from up top Big Red were magnificent. You can see the desert stretched out in front of you and the concentric sand dunes. And the other thing that was a surprise for us was the amount of water that was there, had been left over from recent rains, and it brought a heap of water birds with it as well. And then once you're on top of Big Red, you think you've climbed the top, but there is another pinnacle to go again. And this one's fairly steep actually, but a lot of fun, and there you are. You're on the highest sand dune in Australia. The camera actually doesn't catch or give the sense of magnitude of just how big this sand dune is, and how steep it is as well. It, towards the top gets very steep.
Maybe just touch on the brake. Yeah.
And even when you're driving straight down it, it still doesn't catch it. It just looks like a gentle slope. But straight over the top, fairly steep, and then it evens out when you go down, but it's a long way down. one thing we were able to do once we finished playing, and we spent probably 4 or 5 hours just playing around in the dunes at Big Red there, was to take some time and appreciate the natural beauty. The sand itself was fascinating. Just the ripples that go through it and the colour, the natural vegetation and the views were stunning. One thing that was a surprise was the water, which added to the beauty of the day, and as we said before, the water birds. Unfortunately, all too soon our day came to an end and we headed back towards Birdsville, and the end of this part of our Project Pajero trip. Thanks again to all of our sponsors, without whom this trip would not have been possible. They really have contributed to making it a worthwhile trip. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.